Hey everyone, it's Michelle Hemley here from Hemley's Health, Fitness, Sport Development, and welcome to our blog for this week. Today we're going to be talking about when things don't go to plan on race day, because sometimes things happen, sometimes they're out of our control, and the more races you do, the more chances curveballs are going to be thrown your way at some stage, particularly if you do endurance style events, which I know many of you do, and that's why you're involved with us. So when you're racing in an event that's 1, 2, 5, 10 hours in length, it's very, very unusual that you'll have smooth sailing the whole way. And you need to have some strategies in place to navigate through these unexpected challenges as they arise, so it doesn't completely finish your race then and there. Now, this blog post was prompted by an experience that I've had coaching in the last few weeks. So I coach a secondary school cross-country team, and a few weeks ago we arrived at our event a little bit late. So we arrived quite close to the start of the race, and this meant that the participants couldn't do the warm-up that they would normally do before they had their event. Now, this completely threw some of them. Their mind was in a spin. Their race was over before it even began because they were just so thrown at the fact they couldn't do their regular warm-up. Now, these guys are just kids, so this might be the first time something unexpected has happened to them and they haven't had an ideal lead in to their sporting event. So it's a learning opportunity for them. But as adults, we've had a little bit more experience. Some of us have raced a lot. A lot of us have had various curveballs thrown with us on race day, including myself. I'll tell you about some of them in this blog. And today I wanted to talk about 5 tips you could use to navigate through these challenges when the unexpected happens, or sometimes just something completely out of the blue happens, what you can do to get yourself back on track. So the first tip is actually called the WIN principle, and it's win is not winning coming first. WIN is actually an acronym, and it means what's important now. And I learned about this acronym in Michael Phelps's book. I'm presuming most of you who know who Michael Phelps is. He's won a gazillion Olympic gold medals in swimming. And at Beijing Olympics in 2008, he actually won 8 gold medals at the One Olympics, which has never been done before and obviously is an amazing achievement. Now, I absolutely love sports autobiographies. So, of course, I've got Michael Phelps. And in his autobiography, he talks about the WIN principle. So what's important right now, as in right this second, to achieve his goal. And he relates this to the final of the 200-metre butterfly at the Beijing Olympics. Now, this is one of his main events. It was one of his gold medal winning events in a world record time. However, when he dived in for his 200 metres butterfly, straight away his goggles started filling up with water. So as soon as he's dived in, one of the most important events in 4 years that he's trained considerably for, etc., etc., and his goggles had started leaking straight away. He recalled in the book that he knew a 4-lap race, by about a lap and a half, he wouldn't be able to see. So immediately he said, okay, it's the Olympic final. This happens every 4 years. I've trained bloody hard for it. What am I going to do to still have a successful race? So straight away he started counting his strokes. He knew how many strokes he would normally do in the first lap of a 200 fly, which was obviously less because he had the dive. The next 2 laps, laps 2 and 3, he pretty much did the same stroke count. And in the final lap, he usually did 1 extra because he was fatigued. So he did that strategy. He immediately went, okay, I can't see. What's important now? I've got to do a good race. I'll count my strokes. He still won the Olympic gold medal, still world record time. So that's just a perfect example of an elite athlete having a curveball thrown at him. It's not ideal, but he's gone, okay, what do I have to do to get the result I wanted? I use that example all the time because obviously I coach a lot of swimming, and I'm forever having kids diving in, and we're doing a time trial and they'll dive in and their goggles will fill up, so they'll stop. And I go, don't stop, you've got a time trial. Keep going, you just go with your goggles filled up. So it's a really important lesson to show that, just because someone's an elite athlete and has had amazing achievements doesn't mean they've had it perfect. And I love that example from Michael Phelps. Another example of when things are thrown on race day is weather conditions. And I have watched footage of Sally Pearson. I don't think it was her Olympic gold medal. It might have been a Commonwealth Games or a World Championships. And it's absolutely pouring down with rain. And all of the other competitors, look, they're standing on the start line. They look like they don't want to be there. They've got rain jackets on. And then there's Sally. Her eyes are just focused on her lane and she's jumping up and down, and you wouldn't even know it was raining looking at it. She is just completely focused on what's important now, which is that she executes the race that she knows she can do. So if you show up at an event and it's windy, it's hot, it's raining, it's cold, what's important now? What can you do to help deal with the conditions better? So that's tip number one. What's important now? No matter what is thrown at you, what can you actually focus on that you can control? Step number two is set and forget. So sometimes when something that we don't want to happen happens, we then waste a lot of energy afterwards getting angry about it or thinking about it or stressing about it. I read somewhere once that someone didn't get a 5-minute drafting penalty in a triathlon. They got a 2-hour and 5-minute drafting penalty because they spent 5 minutes in the penalty box serving out their penalty, and then they spent 2 hours wasting energy getting pissed off and angry about it, which was just a waste of time. So, same as if you're competing in an endurance event. Say you've fallen off pace at the start with, or you're doing a triathlon and you've just had a crap swim that day. Set, forget, that's happened, move on to the next thing. What are you executing now? What's important now? And what can you do from now on to have your best race or event possible from this point onwards? Don't waste energy thinking about things that have happened. Number 3, and this is an interesting one, is know your why. Now, whenever I meet with a new athlete, I always ask their why, and people tend to not go deep enough straight away. Why do you want to do this marathon? And they'll say, I want to break 3 hours 30. And it's no. What's your why? Because when you're halfway through a marathon and you're feeling really hot and you've got a stitch, just thinking about a time goal which looks like it's slipping away is not going to be enough to get you through that period, recover from it, and keep going the best you can. An event I had where it's probably the biggest curveball I've ever been thrown in racing, I got through it because I had a really powerful why. And I didn't actually recognise it at the time because I was only 24, and to tell the truth, I didn't think too deeply. But this is what happened. My very first Hawaii Ironman, I actually had a crash on the bike in the last kilometre of the bike ride, and I dislocated my shoulder joint and fractured my collarbone. I still managed to finish the race for a few reasons. One is the adrenaline of a race. I didn't actually realise how much damage I had done to myself. But number 2 was I had immense gratitude for the people who'd helped me get there. So I qualified for Hawaii at my first attempt. I'd only been doing triathlons for 6 months. I trained with a lot of people who had been, it was their greatest dream in the world to race the Hawaii Ironman, and they had been training and competing for years and years, and they'd always just missed out on qualifying. Yet when I did on my first attempt, not really knowing what it was, they were so incredibly supportive and excited for me. I was also a full-time student at the time, so I wasn't quite sure how I was going to fund my way to Hawaii. And I actually ran this event, a fundraiser, and it was a dress-up party. People had to dress up in something Hawaiian, and we had raffle prizes and silent auctions, and people donated, and it was absolutely amazing. And that's the reason I got to Hawaii, because I ran this fundraiser and people came and participated, and it was awesome, and I collected most of my money to get to Hawaii there. So when I first arrived for my first Hawaii Ironman, I freaked out like most people do, because it's hot and the course looks hilly and everyone's walking around with muscles bulging on their muscles. And, it was scary. However, all I could think about was all of the goodwill coming from home and all of the people who'd helped me get there and supported me and were excited for me. So there was no way I wasn't finishing the event. I'd decided that before I got on the start line. So when I had my crash and hurt myself and, I was reduced to walking and, it was quite a humbling experience, that was my thoughts. I think if I hadn't had that powerful why, I probably just would have stopped and left and stayed in the medical tent. However, having that why there helped me get to the end. So, you need to explore that before your next event, because when you're in the depths of the endurance black hole, as I call it, halfway through to 3/4 of the way through an event, if you don't have a really powerful why, it is actually really hard to keep going, and it's really, really easy to stop. So before your next race, explore your why, and I bet you it's not related to anything outcome. You might have that's a goal. You might have a goal to do a certain time, or to place, or to do a PB. However, when it comes down to it, your why might be you enjoy the camaraderie of your training partners, or you want to set a good example to your children, etc. So, explore your why. and have that with you. Write it on your hand. I write my why down on my hand all the time now when I'm racing. Before each major race, I'll explore my why and I'll write it down so that if I'm feeling bad throughout the race, I just need to look down at my hand and remind myself. And that's a tip you can do too. Number 4 is very, very similar, and that's having an attitude of gratitude. So, to be able to line up for an endurance race is an amazing thing. I have a mother-in-law who has severe rheumatoid arthritis. She's had that since her late 20s. So she couldn't even run around the block, let alone run a marathon. So sometimes that's what I think, who am I to get down in the dumps because I've gone 10 minutes slower than I wanted? At least I could actually do it. And it is an amazing experience. So sometimes I think when you've had a race where things have gone wrong and you're disappointed in what it was, you didn't reach your goals, just look back at what you're grateful for being able to compete, because it actually is a privilege and it's something that not everybody can do. So I look at it like that. And tip number 5 is have some goals around your event that aren't all outcome related. So I hinted on this before. Outcome goals are things like times and places and things you can put a number on, but you won't always hit those because things might happen. Whereas if you can put in some process goals, which is how you actually execute things, so that might be your nutritional plan, or you might be focusing on keeping to a certain heart rate while you're running, or a certain time split on your bike, or a certain food plan and seeing if that works energy-wise. These are all process goals. Or your technique cues, they're process goals. Because sometimes you won't hit the outcome goals despite your best intention. I remember speaking to a friend once. She was about to do her first Ironman, and she said, I've got 3 goals. I've got my dream time goal, one I'd kind of be happy with, and then one that, is really not very good, but I'll deal with it. And I said, okay, so if you get a flat tire on the bike and you're stuck on the side of the road for 45 minutes and you don't meet any of those time goals, what can you still salvage from the race? Can you still do a PB in the run? Can you still have a swim? Can you negative split the bike? All of these things. So you need to have some process goals so that you're happy as well. I had one race once where I didn't actually finish. I got beaten up in the swim and couldn't keep any food down from a raging headache all day. And it was really strange because when I finished, I didn't actually feel that disappointed, because apart from that, I'd executed a really good race, apart from not being able to finish, and a really good preparation as well. So it was a great learning curve, and it was quite strange to feel so good about a race that I didn't even finish, yet I'd still managed to hit. I'd written down 10 goals for the race. I think I hit about 6 or 7 of them, which is above 5. It's above 50%, so I was pretty happy with that. So when things don't go to plan on race day, because they don't always, some tips to help you navigate through these unexpected challenges: win, what's important now. You might have a stomachache, or you might be feeling sick. What's important right now? Do you need to eat less? Do you need to drink more? Do you need to slow your pace, for example? So win, what's important now. Number 2, set and forget. If something unexpected happens that's negative, don't waste time and energy thinking about it. Just deal with it, then move on to the next thing. Number 3, know your why. So that isn't just a time or a place. Deep within, what is your why for competing, and dig into that when things get tough. Number 4, have an attitude of gratitude. Not everybody is in the position to be able to participate in these great events that we do, so appreciate that for what it's worth. And number 5, when you're setting goals, set some process goals as well as outcome goals, because even if you can't achieve the outcome goals, there is definitely, no matter how bad your event has been, there would definitely be some opportunities for you to tick off some process goals. So write yourself a list, 5 to 10 goals. Some might be outcome-based, some might be process-based. And that way, if things happen and you're not going to meet the outcome goals that you intended, you can at least salvage the event and tick off some process goals along the way. So that's it. I wish events always went to plan, but they don't. The more events you do, the more chances there are for things to go wrong. The more events you do, there's also more chances for things to go right. So appreciate and enjoy when you do have a great race and things go fantastically, and don't get too down in the dumps when things don't go to plan, because that's life. I will see you next time. If you would like to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Hemleys Hub, please go to www.hemleys.com.au and you can get some weekly inspiration, including our blog posts. I will write some again, but I was right. The video is much more time efficient, so I'm sticking with them for a little while because we're quite busy at the moment with some hopefully exciting news to share with you all very soon. Okay, see you later. Bye.